Hey everybody, Traxxer here, back with another video. Recently, there's been a ton of talk about how broken the operator is and how the meta currently revolves around it. There have been countless posts and clips posted in the Valorant subreddit and around the community about why the op is overpowered and how it's insanely difficult to counter. You've seen how many pro matches are won based on which team has the better opper, and oppers are especially good in solo queue due to a real lack of coordination and trading kills. Ranked games at the moment are almost entirely decided by which team has a better opper, and it's incredibly frustrating to play against. Like I said before, there is a huge lack of coordination in solo queue, and while, yeah, you can try and rally your team a little bit, it's going to be hard to do that every single game, especially when there's still players who are playing without a microphone. So how did the op meta get so bad? Well, it's a culmination of things, really. The first reason why the op meta is currently so strong is due to a lack of utility within the game. This recent Hiko clip hits the nail right on the head as to why the op is so good right now.
Like I'm saying, I think the game right now has a lack of utility. The game needs to have more ways to counter oppers, because right now, ops are way too powerful on the defense side. And like I'm saying, teams are double, sometimes even triple opping because it's literally impossible to push off all the angles. There's not enough flashes, there's not enough smokes, there's not enough utility. A team in Counter-Strike has 10 flashes, 5 smokes. So in this game, you have 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 flashes, and you have 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 smokes for the entire round. So the problem is there's not enough utility right now to counter oppers. So oppers right now are teeing off on teams.
His main complaint, as you can see, is that there is a huge lack of utility within Valorant right now compared to CS, for example. His argument about how each member in CS has a smoke and or 2 flashbangs each is critical to point out here. Currently, depending on your team composition, your team may not even have half of that amount of utility. So oppers are able to freely play the game without ever having to really reposition themselves, and as a result, oppers are basically teeing off on the other team, as Hiko puts it. This also leads to why Jett is so good right now. If your Jett is running an operator and they do actually need to reposition, Jett is the best at doing so because she has so many movement options available to her. She has her dash, she has her jump to get around smokes, and she has her own smokes herself, so she can easily escape any type of push from the attacking team. She can also get kills and get out with no problem due to that same mobility, completely denying the possibility of a trade kill. At the same time, you've seen agents like Breach take a fall in power rankings because even though he is an extremely strong agent with some great abilities, he is terrible against oppers. The current lack of utility could be due to the fact that the game is still young. Riot has come out and said that they want to release roughly 6 agents per year, so we could be getting more agents this year and in years to come that would have more utility to counter strategies. However, that can be a little tricky as older agents with less utility may get outdated extremely quickly. Why would you play a lesser character with less utility when the newer ones will be stronger with more utility and team play? That's just some food for thought. Reason number 2, map design. By now, I'm sure we've all heard the complaints about Valorant's current map design and philosophy and how the maps are currently too choke point oriented. While I don't necessarily agree with all of the complaints that people have to say about the maps, there is still some merit to them. Once again, comparing Valorant to CS, Valorant is a much more streamlined game in almost all areas. It's part of what makes the game so much more accessible to more people. However, this can have some downsides. It's important to understand that in a game like Valorant, with agents having abilities and more mobility options, the maps need to reflect that, which results in more hallways and linear sightlines in general. This makes sense, but it also really helps oppers in the game. They have set angles that they just have to hold, and when they actually do get smoked or flashed out, they can just run and hold the next hallway available. Sure, they now have to retake the site with the op if they're completely pushed out, but the attacking team has likely already used all of their limited utility on pushing the opper off the site. This is part of why I originally really liked Ascent. It felt the most like a CS map, specifically Dust 2. It has way more open and wide sightlines as well as those small corridors. Luckily for us, the Valorant Balance team has not been shy about implementing map changes very quickly, as we saw with the massive and fantastic changes to the midsection of Split. Last but not least, the movement of Valorant has helped in making the op overpowered. Players in Valorant move much slower than CS, which makes tracking much easier and wide swinging or even jiggle peeking worse for the attacker. You can't bait out an op shot as easily as you could in CS, which is one of the main counterplay methods in CS. As I was saying before, Valorant is a much more streamlined game, and this game also has those mobility options I was talking about. So that's likely part of the reason why movement speed is slower and tracking is easier. However, this doesn't negate the fact that slower movement speed is adding to the current op problem. There's also the fact that counter-strafing isn't really a thing in this game, so as an opper, you can actually play way more aggressively without as much punishment because you instantly have a perfectly accurate shot as soon as you let go of your movement key. The fact that the op has a longer aim down sight animation does help to negate that, but it still doesn't change the fact that you can play more aggressively than in CS. So how can Riot fix the current op problem? Aside from the obvious answer of adding more agents into the game with more utility, there are a few ways that I believe Riot can minimize the power of the op. Don't get me wrong, I think the op belongs in Valorant in some fashion. I don't think you can have a shooter without having any snipers. That's just the way it is. The following changes would be to lessen its power but not make it completely useless. There should be the option to run an operator on your team, just like there should be good counterplay methods. The first change I would recommend is to change the op price to 5,000 credits instead of 4,500. We've already seen the Valorant team make credit changes to a variety of weapons, namely the Ares and the Guardian as of late, so the balanced team wouldn't be opposed to this. Changing the credit amount to 5,000 would make the operator more of a risky buy, meaning less people may opt for choosing an op in a round, or they will have less of their abilities or even heavy armor. This change would also have a big impact on overtime, as you currently get 5,000 credits per round in overtime. This would mean that if teams wanted to run an op in OT, they would have to opt for not having any light armor or abilities. The second option that Riot could go with is to limit the amount of operators to 1 per team. Currently, a lot of teams are just saving and going for the double or even triple operator setup. With this change, it would stop teams going for the double operator setup and make the operator easier to play against, as the opper could only really hold one side of the map. Now, I believe a change like this is highly questionable, as like I mentioned in my previous video about Sage, I don't enjoy limiting players. That just screams bad balance. All this change would do is aggravate players more, but I suppose it's still an option theoretically. The third option that Riot could go with is to add a scope in sound. This seems like the best change that Riot could ever make, and it seems like that's the consensus from what I've seen around the Valorant community. Adding a sound when you aim down sights with the op would make a much welcome change and would allow the attackers to actually know whether someone is holding a short tight angle with the operator or not. CSGO currently has a scope in sound, and it acted as one of the main drawbacks of using the op. Adding it into Valorant would change how people play with the operator, and it would add some much needed counterplay to the weapon without directly nerfing its power or price. I don't think too many people would be opposed to this change, and I am actually really hoping they add it into the game. The last and final change, which is a bit more of a bonus change, would be for Riot to add a community map design tool. I don't know if Riot would ever do something like this, but I think adding a community map design tool would be largely beneficial for Valorant in the long run and for addressing the current op problem. People have been complaining about the current maps, and I think allowing the community to help out with map design would help make current and future maps better to play. It would give the map team many more ideas and inspirations for the future. We've already seen how beneficial a community map tool can be in CS, with a handful of maps being community made. Riot has already been a huge presence within the community, and I think working with the community even more would just benefit all parties involved. It's a win-win situation. I want to ask what you all think of the operator at the moment, and if you think there should be any changes made, and what changes would you make? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks again for watching another video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe below. It really helps me out and I really appreciate it. And it lets me know what kind of content you guys want to see in the future. Alright, thanks again, and I'll see you next time.